Wow, you guys look amazing. So before we get started, I do have a few housekeeping items to go over with you. We are streaming tonight's event online and have hundreds of people joining us from all around the world, including my giant family. Hi, family. If anybody in this room would prefer not to be on camera, I invite you now to go to the back of the room to see Natasha. She will take you to the classroom downstairs. You can enjoy the evening from there. It's just as much fun, I promise. Nice, brave crew. I like it. Your camera ready, so you're good to go. Also, now would be an excellent time to turn off or silence your cell phones. Yes, so that we can enjoy tonight's wonderful evening free of digital interruption. Great. Thank you. Hi, my name is Eliza Swords, and it is an honor to welcome you to the University of Santa Monica, the worldwide center for the study and practice of spiritual psychology. I see so many familiar faces in the audience tonight, so welcome to our alumni, our current students, our guests, and to those of you who are perhaps new tonight to USM, here to explore what this education is about. Tonight is the second of 4 complimentary evenings we are holding this year as part of our new Soul-Centered Living series. This series was born out of our 10-month Soul-Centered Living 1 certification program, which many of you may be here considering tonight. Whatever you're here for, you're in for a treat. So, you may be asking, what is soul-centered living? And what does any of this have to do with money? Great question. Tonight, the university's president and chief creative officers, Drs. Ron and Mary Hulnick, will answer that question and so many more as we delve into the rich and powerful metaphor of money. I know when I explored my relationship with money during my time here as a student, everything changed. Using the powerful skills I learned in the classroom, I really was able to look at and examine my perceived sense of unworthiness. And on the other side of that exploration, I am now able to experience myself as fully valuable and inherently worthy. And wouldn't you know it, my outside world began to change to match this. Not only did my relationships improve monumentally, but I am so much more aware and open to the abundance in my day-to-day life. So when I tell you that we are in for a treat to talk about money with Ron and Mary tonight, I speak firsthand. They are truly masterful teachers. Drs. Ron and Mary Hulnick are worldwide leaders and pioneers in the field of spiritual psychology. They are renowned educators and founding faculty of the University of Santa Monica, where they have designed, developed, and facilitated this transformational education for over 35 years. They are both licensed marriage and family therapists, and Mary is a licensed clinical psychologist. Their book, published by Hay House, titled Loyalty to Your Soul, The Heart of Spiritual Psychology, has been published in 8 languages and is available in 12 countries worldwide. I'm also thrilled to announce that their new book, again to be published by Hay House, will be available in January 2017. In facilitating this powerful work for over 35 years, Ron and Mary have guided thousands of people to the abundance in their hearts. Tonight, we are lucky enough to have them guide us. So won't you please join me in welcoming to the stage the university's president and chief creative officers, Drs. Ron and Mary Hulnick.
Thank you. Well, we are so delighted to be here this evening. This event has had an amazing response, the largest ever in the university's history, and so we're so happy for all of you that are here in the building with us, and also for those of you that are joining us online.
So we already know there are over 300 online, and it seems to be growing rapidly. Hi, Barry's parents. And it's really interesting to be here tonight to talk about money. It's not something that we generally speak about at USM because money and spiritual growth and awakening, for a lot of people, those are two separate camps. And in a way, it's true. So we're going to take a little look at that. And
Well, and to start, just because we've all come from busy days and so on, it'd be lovely to begin with a centering. So I just invite you to focus your awareness in your heart. You can close your eyelids if you want. That's your choice. And let's bring our awareness into our hearts, into the presence of love that is our essential nature. Knowing that within us is an eternal wellspring of love, of joy, of peace, of aliveness, enthusiasm, creativity. That our true nature not only is one of loving and beauty, but also is a repository and expression of the inner wealth of who each one of us truly is. And as we come more into the awareness of our inherent loving nature, of our inherent worthiness, greater levels of fulfillment, of purpose and meaning are very often the natural byproduct of that. So just now, I invite you to follow the rising and the falling of your breath, breathing in the loving and breathing out the loving. Letting go of any concern, of any stress that you may have been experiencing. And we give gratitude for this time and opportunity, the opportunity to awaken more into the awareness of the wealth that we each are. And also this evening, to release any restriction or limitation that may have blocked us from that awareness and have blocked us from the awareness of greater prosperity and abundance in our physical world lives, our financial lives. And I invite you also to come into the awareness of gratitude, gratitude for yourself, gratitude for the blessings of your life, gratitude for the opportunities to awaken more fully into the awareness of the abundance, prosperity, and riches that are indeed the essence of who you are. All right, so you can gently bring your awareness back here into the room.
You know, it's really interesting. I was thinking about really being prepared for this workshop. So when we came into the room, Renee said, "Is your phone on mute so it doesn't ring in the room?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. Let's check it out." So we got my phone out, and we couldn't check it out because there wasn't enough power to have a signal on the phone. I thought, well, that's a really good news because then it certainly won't ring. Renee thought that wasn't such good news, and so we plugged it in back there, and then it disappeared. So I think we found it again. All right. Physical world reality. And that's part of what we're really going to be talking about this evening. We'll start out, we're going to give you some information, things we've learned over the past, let's say, 30 some odd years. And things we've learned when we were doing workshops on just this subject. Most people aren't aware of this, but the first book we ever wrote was called Financial Freedom in 8 Minutes a Day. And it was published by Rodale Press probably about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, something like that. The principles are still very, very good. You can get them for like $2 or $3 if you just go on Google. And a lot of the stuff in there is outdated, but the principles still work. And when we started writing the book, we decided that we have to have like something in there that would be a good thing to dedicate the book to. And so what we came up with at the time is that the real purpose of money is to assist us in fulfilling our dreams. And I still think that's a pretty good definition about the purpose of money. So in this room, because I can't see the other rooms, how many people are new? So I get a sense
New
of...
to USM.
New to USM.
All right,
Okay,
wonderful.
good.
Welcome.
All right, so some of the things we say, it'll mean different things to people who have been through the programs, but we'll try to be as universal as we can. So, as I said, when we do these workshops, one of the things that we have found is that there were 3 distinct approaches that people would have going for them who tended to be successful insofar as money is concerned.
And also, these were the 3 elements that we found if we worked with people on relative to money, the combination of them was extremely powerful for people.
So this isn't working too well back here. That's not going to help.
Well, it's
Okay.
your run.
So we found that there were 3 distinct approaches for success with respect to your finances. And these are not new, and this won't be new information. Some of it may be for the new people. But there's a lot more creativity involved, and by creativity, we mean what you hold inside your consciousness that manifests out in the world in the form of financial resources. So there's a creating aspect to it. And you've seen this in things like affirmations and vision boards and ideal scenes and all of that kind of stuff.
And part of why those are effective from my point of view is they help people develop a clear picture of what it is that they're going for, and it really helps them align their intention, which is another huge key. Intention is a very powerful engine of success.
So the second one, you got the second and third. So, John, what should we do? Should I just let you run the thing and I'll just cue you, or because it doesn't?
If you hold it up, it's not working.
All right, we'll keep going. We'll try that. So, this is the one that a lot of people just really don't want to be involved in, but it is so crucial, and that has to do with tracking. You have to have a system that tracks what's coming in and what's going out. I know that sounds awfully sophomoric, but nevertheless, so many people don't do this. And you know why? You know what the single biggest reason that people don't do it? They're afraid to look. Obviously that's not anybody in here. Right. And when they dare to look, do you know what they find? It's never as bad as they thought it was. So you have to have some kind of a tracking system that tells you what's coming in and what's going out. And then there are various ways you work with that so that you're not spending beyond what's coming in. That in and of alone is challenging for a lot of people. So that kind of information is out there. It's been out there for long periods of time. The third one is one that is peculiar to USM, and we'll get into it a little bit more later, but it has to do with it has to do with what we call working your process. You have a lot more going on in your consciousness than you might be aware of that directly and importantly influences the state of your finances. So we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to do a little process
Activity,
later on,
yeah.
a little activity where you'll have a chance to make notes on these things and then see if there's any things that you might want to do differently.
And the working your process aspect really has to do with consciousness. It has to do with beliefs. It has to do with unresolved issues inside. It has to do with patterns in consciousness that we've taken on as part of our conditioning. And there is tremendous leverage in this area insofar as the realm of money, of finance, of manifesting greater wealth, because it's very possible, and not only is it possible, it can really be so liberating and freeing to learn how to do the work to help become more aware limiting beliefs and these restrictive ideas and understandings that we've taken on that then get played out in the realm of our finances.
So there seem to be two major, what we call money myths. Money myths means we make it up. So let's take a look at those. And a lot of these are not that they have to do with anything in this room, but other people on the planet living in other countries, they believe these things. So, two common myths, all right. The first one is that one's net worth is an accurate indicator of one's self-worth. That what I'm doing out there in the world financially somehow is a measure of my own inner worth and value. And we'll talk about that in a little while. The second one is almost, let's move it ahead one. And this is the one we're going to talk about a little bit. The higher your standard of living, the greater the quality of your life. The higher your standard of living, the greater the quality of your life. So there's a gentleman who really has done some nice work. Some of you may be aware of it, called Marty Seligman at the University of Pennsylvania. And he did what he called the happiness studies. The happiness studies, where he had ways of measuring people's sense, not their value so much as this relationship between whether it's true that the more you have, the more fulfilled you are. Here's what he found out. That if you're earning as a family anywhere less than $50,000 a year, so let's say you're earning $30,000 a year as a family, and you get a great job or you get an influx of money or something like that, where it goes up to $50,000 a year, that results in a significant shift in your sense of happiness in this world. So he showed that very clearly. Here's the kicker. Beyond $50,000 a year, from 50 on up to 50 million, it made absolutely no difference in the degree to which a person felt happy and fulfilled in their life. And don't we all know some really wealthy people who are pretty unhappy in walking around that way? So something else is operating here. Clearly it's not the amount of money that's at stake. So this is what we're going to take a look at here. And I'm going to do it this way. Those of you who are USMers, excuse me, you've seen this about 1,000 times. I'm going to give you the short version. Those of you who are new, this may be new information. Certainly new magic markers. Physical world reality that is measured on a continuum you want. So money would be one great example. And we refer to this as the goal line of life because people are always going for goals. And I assure you, and if you want proof, just pick up any newspaper or go on to any news channel. The great majority of people on this planet today are living in this reality. It's just the way it is. It's not bad. It's just the way it is. while this is going on, and less known, consciously at least, as opposed to as a concept, there is a whole other reality going on that we referred to as spiritual reality. The inner world. How the person who lives inside of you is relating to this world out here. The inner world is the world where you really live. And this is where we do activity and we attempt to accomplish things. There is no negative or positive in this world. The world itself is composed of one thing and one thing only. And every one of the world's major religions is in total agreement, all the mystical systems. It goes by the name of love. So this whole thing is just its basic nature is love. We awaken into greater levels of that sense of reality inside of us. And this is what it's what the word awakening means. It's what the word enlightening means. All of those words mean exactly the same thing. So let's be really, really, really clear, and this is a very important point. It's not that as you awaken, you become a more loving person. It's not that. Because you can't become more of what you already are. What can you become? More awake, more aware. The more aware you are, it changes your whole view of physical world reality and how you participate there. So we're going to be talking this evening in both senses. So some of what we'll say, like what I said before about tracking is not a spiritual concept or activity, it's a physical world activity. We're living in a physical world. The quality of our life is totally up to us. It's totally up to us. So it's important to distinguish this when we get into the area of money, because we don't want to come across to you tonight as just another way to give you spiritual principles and practices so you can have more money. That's not what we're attempting to do here. What we're attempting to do is to, yes, give you ways that you can enhance your physical world reality. Why not? It always seemed to us the more you have to give. So why not? I don't see any, to me that doesn't contradict anything that I'm aware of. But to be really, really, really clear, this has very little to do with the quality of awareness that you have of your loving nature. So as we move forward this evening, we will work with you on something that will affect that. And we'll get to that when in a little while. One of the most popular books regarding money that I imagine most of you looked at is The Secret. It's called The Secret. And there was a lot of good stuff in there. I mean, as I recall, there was something like 100 secrets for improving the quality of your life, or no, not the quality. They said, let's see, I had it written down here. For achieving health, wealth, and happiness. 100 secrets. It was very interesting to me. There were 4 that I didn't see in there. There were 4 secrets I didn't see in there. And let's see if we can get these to play. We're getting good at this. So the first one, you'll have to spend some of your precious life, energy, and time maintaining everything you create. The more you create, the more you're going to be spending time maintaining all this stuff. And you know what we found in working with people, a much better measure, people say, well, how much does that cost? And then they rattle out the amount of dollars. And we found a much better measure in terms of experience is if you figure out the amount of money per hour that you earn, the amount of money you earn per hour after taxes, let's say that amount is $50. Then, and you see an object that costs 100, the real value of that object is 2 hours of your time. Many people don't think of it that. They just look at the money part of it. You'd be surprised what leverage you get converting it into time. Do I really want to spend 2 hours of my working time to buy that, whatever it is? Something very worth thinking about. So, the second one, you're not going to be able to create more than what is in alignment with your spiritual curriculum. That is a very spiritual-based principle. That everybody comes here, we don't just show up here, that everybody comes here with what we call a spiritual curriculum. In the Eastern traditions, they might call that karma. But that word tends to have a negative connotation. It's not negative at all. It's like being in 4th grade as opposed to 6th grade. Some people are in 4th grade, some people are in 6th grade. So if you're in 4th grade, you're not going to be given examples that it takes a doctorate to handle. You're dealing with 4th grade examples. So you're not going to be able to create more than what's in alignment with your spiritual curriculum. So that may come as good news or bad news. I don't know. It just seems to be the way it is. Want to give us the third one? Why don't you run it? I'll just call them out, okay? So the third one, this is the tough one. This is what the Seligman studies show. You're not going to be any happier after you created successfully than before you started. Why don't they have that in the book? It seemed to me that would be an important one. And the fourth one is that in order to take your next step spiritually, you may find yourself in a position where you need to give up everything you just spent so much time and energy creating. I mean, really. Very often these are people who they let go of all their worldly possessions and they go off and do whatever it is they feel called to do. We're not saying these are things you should do. We're just saying these are things that it's worth knowing about this whole area.
And there are people who really manifest great wealth. And it's very interesting to hear some of them talk about their relationship to their money. We listened recently to a TED Talk by Rick Warren, who wrote A Purpose-Driven Life, which turned out to be one of the best-selling books of all time. And in the talk, when the book just started selling millions and millions and millions of copies, the money just started pouring in. And he said that he and his wife sat down so that they were really going to clarify what their relationship to all of this incredible wealth was going to be. And they decided that they were not going to use it on themselves.
They weren't going to use it personally. And we're talking many millions of dollars.
And rather, what they would do, he's the pastor of a church down in Orange County. He decided that one of the first things they would do would pay back all of the salary he'd received for like the last 25 or 30 years. It was many years, so it was a substantial amount of money. And then they decided, that they were going to form 3 different foundations. One of them would focus on poverty. I think a second one focused on either education or hunger. But the third one was to address HIV disease, and I think on the continent of Africa specifically. And it was really beautiful listening to him talk about this. And many of you have heard of the concept of tithing. And he said, as the wealth grew, my wife and I decided that what we were going to do was reverse tithing. That rather than tithe 10% of what we received, that we would actually tithe 90% of what we received and live on the 10%. And I thought, what an incredible story. And then he spoke also in the video about the very first sentence of the book. And the very first sentence of the book was, "This is not about you." Meaning, this book was not about him. And he spoke about what a privilege he felt it was to be used as the instrument that wrote that book that spoke to so many people. So that, to me, is one very inspiring story of how someone related to great wealth that came to them. And another story involves a man who's a friend of ours, and very successful in his chosen field of work. He's been in this field of work for over 40 years, and he's created great wealth. And I asked him, to tell me a little bit about his history and his relationship with money. And he said, Mary, when I graduated from college and I got my very first job, what I did, every single paycheck I got, I gave $5 to 20 charities. $5 to 20 different charities every single paycheck. And I've heard spiritual teachers talk about wealth and that you really receive through the same space that you give from. And here was a man who is planting incredible seeds. Now, this man has a tremendous generosity of spirit. I mean, he's just extremely generous. He has helped a lot of different people in many ways and many, many organizations, including USM. And I found his story very inspiring because it was a demonstration of an awareness that was present in his consciousness from the beginning of his professional life about the importance of giving, of sharing.
I was just thinking about, he has been the largest single donor to USM as I think back over it. Are we suggesting that you do? Well, yeah. Are we suggesting that as a prescription for life? It's totally up to you. See, all we're saying is that there's a lot more that is going on in your consciousness that has to do with money than what at first seems to be there. It's really all that we're bringing forward here.
And I'm just remembering one of the other things that Rick Warren spoke about, and I think this is a key element when we're talking about money as well. And for him, the whole thing was a very, very deep level of trust in spirit, trust in the divine, trust in the unfailing supply of spirit. Really beautiful.
So we're going to take a look at this in a little bit of a different way, and yet the same idea. And we're going to do it this way. Can I have the next one, John? So there is a great quote by Dr. David Hawkins, who transitioned from this planet a couple of years ago, and he's written some incredible stuff. And one of the things that, he was a psychiatrist he had the largest psychiatric bed hospital in the city of New York, 250 bed hospital. And one day he got in his truck and drove west. That's it. and settled finally in Sedona, Arizona, and then started writing. And the first book, which we highly recommend, is called Power versus Force. How many people have taken a look at that? I imagine a fair number of you, yes. And there were about 8 more books after that. I read them all. They're just really great. But he made this particular statement that I thought was so important. Perception is edited observation. So you observe. You observe. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you see what you observe. Something happens in the process and you perceive. You have perceptions. You interpret. You make something out of it. David Hawkins estimated, he had a way of doing what he called muscle testing in a particular way, that the process happens in about 1/10,000th of a second. That's pretty quick. Too quick for me to catch on. So it brings up the question, well, this perception is edited observation. Who is doing the editing? So the answer to that, John is going to share with us. Who does the editing? Your ego does the editing. Your ego is the part inside of you that is running physical world reality. It's the part that has a positive and negative. There's no positive and negative in love. It's just love. Very important to understand that. So your ego is the one who's doing this editing. And that raises the question, based on what? Based on what? So the answer is your personal beliefs. So that means that you are going to tend to perceive in accordance with your personal beliefs. And therefore, what you believe determines what you'll perceive and what you'll experience. This is a psychological phenomenon, not an economic one. This is the kind of stuff that we really focus in on here. So let me just run this through you again, because it's so important. If you got nothing else and you're new this evening, there's what goes on out there, which you observe, but you observe it from a particular slant. So, for example, 2 people seeing the same thing can have a totally different perspective on it, depending upon where you're coming from inside. The one who does the editing is your ego, not your authentic self, not the who you truly are that's growing and awakening, but that part of you that deals with physical world reality. And what is it based on? Your personal beliefs. Where do those beliefs come from? It's a combination of what you observed and what you lived when you were growing up, and the culture you come out of, and your spiritual curriculum. It's all it's all woven up into that. Therefore, that context determines what you'll perceive, and based on that, it will determine what you experience. A lot of people don't understand that what you perceive determines your experience. I mean, I don't know how to say it in a clearer way. So, for example, if you think and you perceive that something is a bad thing, you're going to feel sad about it. And if you perceive that something is a good thing, you're going to feel happy about it. Same thing could be true for most people. Very, very, very important. Because what we're going to take some time to work with here this evening is seeing if we can get at some of what your beliefs are having to do with money itself, and see if those might be helpful to you in moving forward.
To become more aware of them and to have the opportunity to let go of them.
Are you ready for these?
So, yes, so we have a handout that has the activity on it. So let's go ahead and distribute that to everyone, and then we'll review it and talk with you a little bit more about how we're going to work with this.
By the way, this is true not only for finances, it's true for anything in your life. And you're going to do a little bit of writing, so if you need a pen, if you just raise your hand, the assistants will bring you one.
Hi. Hi.
So you want to start putting them
Yeah.
through that?
I think right here, Elisa. All right. Is there anyone that still needs a handout, hasn't yet received a handout? Looks like we need a few more down here in the front.
We know that you really all came tonight to get the pens.
All right. And is there anyone who needs a pen? Needs a pen? So let's take a look at this this handout, starting with the first quote, which Ron referenced right at the beginning of our time together. The real purpose of money is to assist us in fulfilling our dreams. I just love that because I think there's such a beautiful, aspirational, heartfelt quality to it. And then a quote from Soren Kierkegaard, our life always expresses the result of our dominant thoughts. And then another quote from us, life is like a fine restaurant. You always get what you order. And the beliefs that we hold and the perceptual filter through which we're screening and evaluating our life really is a huge part of how we place that order. So there are a number of questions here, and we'll just review them so you have the overview. The first one, briefly and honestly identify at least 5 limiting messages you received about money as you were growing up. What were the rules you learned through what was said or done by your parents and others about money, wealth, and what you can or can't have? This early conditioning and modeling is extremely powerful and can really lay down some very, very deep beliefs that in the end can be quite restrictive and limiting. And we have an example here. There was never enough money. It took every cent my dad made to pay the bills. And I know I had a conversation with a woman within the last year or so who talked with me about growing up in an extremely wealthy family. There was just tremendous abundance. There were gardeners, there was large property, there were servants. Everything was basically handled. But rather than feeling the flow of the abundance, there was a family belief of, oh, you don't need that now. You can get through. There was this feeling of frustration that got seated inside of her and that she couldn't really have what she wanted. And that still existed today inside of her and really was a major limitation. So we have space here so you can write down 5 of these. And you don't need to do that now. We'll come back to it. The second is utilizing your list of limiting messages. Reformulate each of them into a positive perspective that will better serve you. Example, I can gracefully meet all my expenses, pay myself 10% or more first, and use a portion of my income to support good works of my choice. And again, an opportunity there for you to reformulate the beliefs, the limiting beliefs that you identified at the beginning. And then take each of the positive perspectives you've reformulated, turn them into positive statements or affirmations, beginning with I am. I'm easily meeting all my expenses, joyfully building wealth by saving 10% or more each month and supporting good works. And then we have a question, list any actions you could take if you choose to bring these statements into your current reality. Because change generally requires action. It generally requires that we do something different from what we have been doing. And then at the end, we have space for you to identify and write down 5 statements of what you're most grateful for in your life. Example, I'm grateful for my family and the love and support we share. And then a quote from John Speller, who wrote a tiny little book about tithing and seeding. A good gardener does not only cultivate flowers, he or she cultivates soil. The thoughts which you are always sending out compose the soil of your life. If you are constantly projecting thoughts of lack, you will have barren soil. If you project thoughts of prosperity, your soil will be rich in the humus of success, and it is that soil in which your seed money grows best. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take probably about 8 minutes, and we're going to invite you to work on the first question only, to think about your growing up, to think about what was modeled to you about money, what was said to you about money, or what you heard people who were significant in your life say. Let's just begin there and get some of those down. If you finish that before the time is up, you can go on and start working on number 2. But we're going to be doing some sharing following from this. And it's through the identifying of these limiting messages that in most cases probably became limiting beliefs that then we'll have some material that we can work with here together.
So we'll just play some soft, quiet music while you do that. And let's please begin. All right, so what we'll do now is open it up for sharing. So there may be something, what we've shared so far, that you may have a question about, or you may have a question that has nothing to do with anything we've shared so far.
Well, and
We'd like it to.
And more specifically, it could be in looking at some of these limiting messages that you receive. There may be a question you have about that, how you can transform them, and so on. So we just want to encourage you to take full advantage of the opportunity here in terms of the material that's up for you relative to the. Let's wait for the microphone.
See, aren't we working with the box? Yeah. Okay, so let's explain what we're doing. So because we have the camera running for the people online, if you get called on to share, you want to go right over there to where this lady is, and then they'll give you the microphone, and that way the camera can adjust so that everybody who is online can see what's going on.
And if you would start with your first name.
My name is Rita.
Rita?
Rita, yes.
Rita.
I wanted to say that I was very surprised that I was able to come up with 5 answers as quickly as I did. That they just sort of flowed out rather than to really think about them. And that's really what I have to say about that.
Well, would you be willing to share them?
Let me see if I can. One of them is you'll never have anything left over for yourself. Keep all your money to yourself. Don't share. Everyone is really poor and poor at heart. Don't let anyone tell you you'll be rich. The world is made up of very poor people. And that just came out. It wasn't anything that I really gave a lot of thought to.
Yes. Well, it's really incredible the way they flowed out, and also just like they're kind of a cluster around a theme.
Yes. Yes, I was surprised.
Yeah. So is there anything else you'd like to share about this, or anything you'd like to ask?
No, I was just pretty impressed with the fact that everything came out as quickly as it did, that I hadn't really given any thought to these sort of answers, that they were just based within me. And it wasn't until we wrote them down that I realized that I had been thinking about them from time to time, that they were there.
Are you aware of any limitations that you have inside based on them? Or did you just kind of say, well, those are nice and they don't apply to me?
Yeah.
The second one?
Actually, all of them, I was very surprised that I thought about them so quickly.
Yes. Yeah. So I think, and really, we want to be very respectful of you and your process here. I think a question that comes forward for me is to what degree you feel those beliefs have informed your life.
I guess I would think about them from time to time and almost subconsciously, that I didn't really pay that much attention to them in reality.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Super. Bryce?
Barry, oh, you have someone from downstairs?
All
Is that
right,
what
but
you're
I
saying?
called on Bryce here.
Okay.
Bryce is going to be next, and then...
All right, let him come. Come on. Whoever.
So I have my
Would you
question.
start with your name, please?
Oh, sorry. My name is Rob Nelson.
And hold that mic right up in your
My
chin.
question is that good?
Yeah.
My question is one about something you said, and two about an idea about you talked about limiting beliefs, and it was an interesting question for me because I thought about.
We need more volume or something, John. It's hard to hear.
I'll talk louder.
Thank
My
you.
question for you, for the limiting belief aspect, was I realized that one of the things that I grew up with, and maybe a lot of people did, was the idea, one, that money's kind of a precious commodity, that, you know, there's a limited amount of it, and therefore you get it to use to certain ends. But two, that in a positive way that I think is actually a limiting belief, that you'll always have whatever you need. In other words, the idea, if you need it, it'll be supplied, right? A kind of a spiritual kind of notion, you'll be taken care of. But in an odd way, made me always think, so you only need what you need. Like, you don't really want more. As long as everything you need is being taken care of, you're fine. So if you got enough to pay your bills and do this, don't be greedy. Don't ask for more. Don't want money for its own sake, as if somehow wanting it is bad. And I realized that that's kind of always, for me, limited my sense of, like, wealth for wealth's sake isn't a good thing. And when you said earlier, well, people don't get more happiness by having money. And I get that money doesn't make you happy, but I realized that and I guess I'm asking you if you could address the idea, from my perspective growing up, I realized that it almost was as if having money leads to unhappiness, versus the notion that it's okay to just want to have money and that can make you happy, just like love can make you happy. I mean, again, I'm not literally saying the money makes you happy, but the idea that wanting money and having money, even if you don't need it because you want to be able to do whatever you want to do, is an okay thing. So when you said earlier, money doesn't make people happy, something else does, part of me went, well, wait, no. I actually think if I got rid of my childhood beliefs, more money would just make me happy. Like, you know? And I could do a lot of great things with it. And then I clicked in my head when you said the limiting factors, but I shouldn't want more money than I need. So just a broad question around that, if you could address
Sure.
it. Thank you. It's really provocative what
Sure.
you guys are talking about. Thanks.
First of all, there's no should in any of this. No should in any of this. To me, the best definition of wealth that I'm aware of, I don't remember who brought it forward, but to me it's very powerful. And it goes like this: the truly wealthy person is the person who can honestly say, what I have is enough. Who can truly and honestly say, what I have is enough. If I never got any more, it would be fine. Doesn't mean I might not like to have some more, or it doesn't mean I might not think that if I had more, I could do some good work with it, but I don't need it to be okay. Love has nothing to do with money. Nothing to do with money. So, I don't know if that's an answer to your question or not. In a way, it sounds like part of you grew up with that understanding.
What you just said.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess my question is, in some ways it's limited me to where I feel like having affluence. I know a lot of wealthy people. I've had money, not had money, but to where the idea that it's somehow an inherently bad thing. Don't go spend a lot of money at an expensive restaurant. That's wasteful.
See, again,
You know? And maybe I'd frame it to you, like in your lives, how do you personally see it? I mean, I don't know if you're wealthy or not wealthy, but I mean, is money something you go, look, we should have a nice amount so we can live a great life?
when we first got together, we realized that we needed to have guidelines about how we were going to live our lives financially. And so, having been in business for over 10 years, mine was a very, I'll call it a pragmatic view that, you know, you had money coming in, you had money going out, and you looked at the relationship of it, and you had to make all all of the expenses before you thought about extra stuff, let's call it. Mary was more of the mind that it'll, let's just go and get what makes us happy, and somehow it'll work out.
I like that.
So you could understand how perfect it would be for those people to marry each other. So we had to find a compromise. So the compromise that we came up with, which I thought was pretty creative at the time, and in fact has been the one that we have utilized ever since we got married over 35 years ago. And that is that our bills are all paid, and we take 10% of everything we earn and put it into a wealth building account that we don't touch. It's just there to build for the future. And anything beyond the 10%.
Well, not quite, because we also give at least 10% to support good works that we believe in.
Right.
So that's an additional variable.
So 10% we tithe, 10% goes into wealth building. If there's anything left on top of that, that's totally at Mary's discretion. And that has served us well all of these years.
The thing I hear in what you're sharing is that you're aware that somehow the way you were conditioned put a damper on the aspirational aspect for you, on the heartfelt dream aspect.
For money, yes.
Yeah, and really going for some of those dreams that would require financial.
Sure. Or in other words, it's okay to pursue something, but it's not okay to pursue, Donald Trump was the first to tell you, I pursue money for money's sake. I'm not saying that's good, but
Yeah.
the idea that just money should just be a means to an end. That it shouldn't be something you could just enjoy because it makes life fun, or, you can...
See, the key is in the should. See, what I said, the truly wealthy person is the one who honestly can say what I have is enough. That does not put a limitation on it. And I'm going to go out and earn more because I can have more fun and be of more value to other people.
Okay.
It's just that I'm not going to be attached to, I have to do that in order to be okay.
Okay.
That's the key.
Thank you, that makes sense. And just a last quick question. Do you guys struggle still at any point with the idea of limitations around money? I mean, is it something you do struggle? There's always a struggle, it's an ongoing thing, or do you get to a point where it's like, no more limitations, no struggle on it? If you're willing to answer, I mean,
Sure.
Well, I don't.
I want to hear Mary's answer.
I don't relate to financial struggle. I don't relate to that as an experience that I have in my everyday life. Am I aware that there are parameters? I am aware of parameters, but I don't feel them as limitation. And the other thing is that I have always been a good manifester. So it was funny, even when I was in graduate school, like I had this little notebook that I took the notes for the lectures in. But when the lectures got a little dry or already knew the information, I had a section of my book where in there I was writing about my heartfelt dreams and about things that I wanted to experience or that I wanted to have. And at that time, I didn't realize that that was a creative process, that was giving energy into my dreams, my aspirations, the goals that I had of that nature. But I can remember sitting there in many lectures, utilizing that time to write about those things. And
That doesn't mean you should be doing that while we're having this conversation.
To be completely honest, I feel like there are levels of restriction that I could release. I remember one time we were having a meeting with the founder of this university, John Roger, who was the spiritual teacher, and he asked me what kind of car I would like. And I told him a car. He said, "Mary, tell me what car you would really like." So I upped it. And he looked at me and he said, "Wouldn't you like to have a car with a driver that would take you to work every day?" And I looked at him and I said, "But I already have that." And he said, "The only reason you don't have it is because you think you can't." See, so some of these things are subtle. They're subtle.
Thank you.
If I could tell you one other thing that happened, and that has continued to happen, that as we got into that, I'll have to call it a habit, of the always going ahead by at least 10% after paying expenses and tithing 10%, it kind of somehow became a habit. I mean, it literally became a habit. And we would naturally gravitate toward that. In the beginning, we would go through our tracking system probably once a month to see how we were doing. And we had a way for making adjustments that would be in harmony with what we were doing. These days, I think the only time we look at it is once a year when it's time to do our taxes. And invariably, it comes into that center.
And I do look at it more often. Well, I have to notice whether we're within the parameters and how much is going to be left and so on and so forth. But anyway, it's...
You get the idea.
I do. Thank you. Thanks for taking so much time to
Thank
answer.
you.
My name is Bryce, and it was so interesting coming here tonight. I'm at a junction in my life's purpose. I'm at the point now in my counseling program where I am looking for internship. And so I've actually been doing, I would say, a decent amount of inner work on my beliefs around, okay, I'm in my calling, I'm in alignment, and I'm going to be asking for money to do this, which is like, holy cow. And it's kind of interesting because as I came in tonight, I've been feeling very peaceful, working a lot on this, and then we sat down and I wrote some of these things out, and it was a little surprising to realize the significant things that are still hanging around. Yeah. And one of them is when I would have been about 17, I was preparing for college, and I wouldn't say my family had a lot of money. I mean, my mom made a pretty decent living as a nurse. However, there are a lot of other things going on that money wasn't available. And so I had a really good summer job, $1,000 put away in savings, but the way things worked at that time was I had to have a cosigner in my account. And what happened was my mom withdrew all of the money from the account at the time. And she put it back. But it's something about, and something similar happened with my partner last year. The money was taken out of the account, literally all of the money. And so I'm at this point where it's like, okay, there's some sort of resolution that I would love to, have happen inside of myself to proceed in a way that supports me in my life and in living what I know that I'm here to do, but also to do so in a way that's, comfortable and fun.
Sure.
And that I can contribute to meaningful things too.
Well, so may I ask you some questions?
Yes.
When that happened at 17, when your mom took the money out of the account, what were your thoughts and feelings about that, Bryce?
At first, I thought there must be some sort of mistake, like my bank statement must be incorrect. I called the bank. They said, yes, the money was withdrawn, and there are only 2 names on the account, and I didn't take it out. I knew I didn't take it. So I was just confused more than anything.
And when you realized your mom had taken it out of the account?
At the time, I just felt scared. Yeah. I just remember feeling
Scared like
how am I going to do this? Because my parents weren't available financially or even to help me fill out financial aid forms. That wasn't what they were able to do. And
well, let me ask you a different question. Was there something you concluded about money or about yourself or about what you could have or about trusting other people? Any and all of the above.
Yeah, I think I wrote that one down. I'm pretty sure it's one of these. No matter what I do, I'll always be poor.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because literally, it was like I had earned this money, I worked really hard, and I had done my best to get scholarships. So my whole first year of college was paid for, and then the money was gone.
Yes.
And so it was just so defeating.
Oh, believe me.
I'm stooping. I realized I'm stooping.
Did you just say stooping?
Stooping, yeah. As I was saying that, I realized I was hunching over.
Yeah. Well, so are there any other things that you wrote down that you feel are related to this? Because if there are, we might as well work with them all at once.
Yeah. There was another interesting thing that happened earlier, which was about lunch money. I always had this sense that we were really poor, and when I was younger, we didn't have, it was an even lesser amount of money, but so I was always afraid to ask for lunch money. And so even when I'd go in, and of course the lunch ladies aren't going to tell me I can't eat, so I'd have a negative balance on my little lunch ticket, but I was afraid to go and ask my parents for lunch money. And what I wrote was, I can't ask for lunch money, even if it means me going hungry. I can't ask for money to feed myself. And another thing was about my sister, who was not shy about asking for money. She had the designer jeans, and she liked to go to ski with her friends and stuff like that. And that to me just seemed so foreign. And so I never asked. I started working when I was 11, and I'm getting more now. That was my choice. So I started working, I started earning money, and I bought my own clothes, that sort of thing. And it always just seemed like when she asked, somehow the money appeared, and she went on a ski trip or went on another trip with her friend or went shopping or something.
Well, and was there any particular conclusion you drew about that?
That was okay for her, but not for me.
Yeah.
And it feels very matter of fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, would you say again the first thing that you shared about no matter what I do, I'll always be poor? Is that
Yeah.
what
that's
you
it.
said, Bryce?
Yeah.
So it's really such a profound conclusion. And I suspect in looking at internships, you're finding that many of them are unpaid. And if they pay at all, most of them pay very little.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's kind of the fulfillment of that belief.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how we transform these kind of beliefs. And you're a USM grad, so you're going to be familiar with some of this, but really, it's like through having compassion for yourself, that this is a misunderstanding that you bought into as a 17-year-old. It's an understandable conclusion, but it becomes one of those beliefs that binds you, that restricts, that limits, that holds you into a belief that you're always going to be poor.
Yeah.
And so it's a process of compassionate self-forgiveness. I forgive myself for buying into the belief that it's not okay for me to have what I want or need, and that I'm always going to be poor.
I forgive myself for buying into the belief that it's not okay for me to have what I want, or that I'm always going to be poor.
And is there something else? The question that comes forward for me, is there something else under this? Some other idea that you're holding?
Yeah, there was I very recently made a connection between when I was 17 and the more recent incident with the money being taken out of the account, and it was related to gambling.
To gambling?
My mom was in the midst of her gambling addiction when she took the money out, and then when my partner, he did not actually withdraw the money, but when it was withdrawn, and I asked him about why that happened, his response to me was, it was a gamble, and he took the gamble. I didn't choose into that.
How do you feel about gambling?
I don't care. It's not my thing. I don't go to the casino.
Well, let me ask it to you more directly.
Okay.
Do you have judgments against gambling?
I have judgments against gambling when it negatively impacts other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's always.
Yeah.
And there's obviously hurt with that.
Yeah.
You know?
It
and
feels
it's,
unfair.
yes, unfair. I can really understand that. You know, and it's really important to let yourself have these feelings in service to letting them go.
Yeah. And I don't think I've always had a very loving relationship with my mom in particular. And so I don't think it occurred to me to have a judgment when that happened. And so it's almost like a bypass around it, which has led me to this point where it's still here.
You know, what's going to be so important is working with the 17-year-old, working with the younger ones inside of you that experienced hurt and disappointment, feeling like it's not fair, feeling the judgments about gambling, that it hurts others, that it's not okay, it hurts others. because the energy really came up for you. You know, and I just encourage you, it's important to let yourself have those feelings and to really have love and compassion for the 17-year-old who went through all of that, who was dealing with money being taken from her account, money that you had worked for, had set aside for your own education, money that was then taken to by your mother and somehow was involved with her addiction to gambling. I mean, there's a lot here, but the beautiful thing about working with these beliefs by acknowledging them, you can let them go. You can give voice to the little one, the younger one inside of you who went through this. See, because it's playing out even now. It's still playing out. And until we bring these things to resolution inside ourselves, they will continue to play out. Do you have anything you want to add, Ron?
I'll give you a little motivation. You want to be a professional counselor?
Yes.
How are you going to work with people who come in with this issue?
Lovingly and with compassion.
See,
Good answer.
You have to convince them in a way that what they're believing isn't true. It's just something they've chosen to believe. But you won't be able to do that with authority until you do that yourself. Once you do that, that becomes a credential in consciousness. It's not a concept, it becomes a fact because you've done it.
If there were a quality inside of you that if you were more in resonance with it, that you allowed that to come more forward inside of you, that would be like an antidote to this, what would that be?
The one that keeps coming up is strength, but openness came in as well.
How do you like abundance?
I like abundance a lot.
Well, that was the first one that came up for me, and then after you said the two you said, the other one that came forward for me is receiving. Receiving. You know, and the other thing I would encourage you is, I don't know if you work with affirmations or not, but to really work with some powerful affirmations. You know, God is my unfailing supply, large sums of money come to me quickly and under grace. I'm receiving large, happy financial surprises. You know, things of that nature, just to loosen this up in your consciousness, because there's an identification of yourself as poor and that you're never going to have much money. And see, this becomes a story, and then you're living that story. And it's like that's a story that's constructed out of these experiences, the misinterpretations or interpretations that you made at that time, and the unresolved emotional energy inside of you that is the glue that just holds all of this in place. As Ron said, there's observation and then there's perception, and perception is based on the beliefs. And you've acknowledged some really powerful beliefs that you can let go of here. Does this give you some direction?
Definitely. Some of the work that I've been doing recently has been extraordinarily helpful, and I think for me it's just to keep the habit of that going, and get in the habit. Because I've been working with your book as well, and it's like but it's fun. It's interesting to watch how I back off of that at times.
Well, see, and
And-
that's why I asked you what's under this.
Yeah.
And though that may not be present here this evening in your awareness, I encourage you to ask yourself, what's under this? What's under this? Because my sense is there's a deeper belief about yourself.
Yes. And I know it's related to fear. I'm also aware that I have an extraordinary amount of grace in my life, and I'm always
Of grief?
Grace.
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 Oh,
No.
Well, and that's great that you focus on the grace and the gratitude and all of that. And if you are willing to do the work to really dislodge these inside yourself and to really let them go,
Yes.
really heal this for the last time, all kinds of doors will open.
And one of the ways you might approach it is something along the lines of, Lord, I'm here to serve. I can do a lot more if I'm a licensed counselor than I can if I'm pushing a basket in the street.
And
You understand what?
Yes.
See, but you have to then claim the worth and value.
And at the end of the evening, we're going to talk about bedtime intentions relative to these kind of patterns, the kind of bedtime intention that you and others can work with in service to healing.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Greg.
Hello, my name is Greg. One of the beliefs that I have is that there's like a corruption aspect to money. That so much of the I guess that people that have it tend to ensure that they retain it by means that are consequential to others.
Mm-hmm.
And I look out in the world and I see evidence of this.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you know what I'm talking about. And
Well, I could apply that to a lot of different areas.
so the belief is that if I was to have it or acquire it, it would somehow turn me, or I would become like that, because I'm quite convinced that these people are certainly doing what they feel is right. I mean, they're probably donating to organizations that they feel are doing good works themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that creates a separation between, me and them.
Between you and these people?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That that limits, my ability, because I don't want to become that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm certainly aware that, and I worked with this a bit, but it's still present for me, because I'm still seeing it in my, out as I look out on the world. the judgments that I have about, the
Well,
the aspect of avarice.
yes, avarice, greed, and it sounds like questionable ethics that impact others,
Yeah.
that cost others, so to speak. And what I'm hearing implied in judgment associated with all of this.
Well, there would have to be. Otherwise, I wouldn't have an issue with inequality or a feeling like that is inaccessible to me.
Okay.
Because I've been locked out by systems that have been developed by
Yes.
a cabal of people
Yeah.
that are squirreling the nuts away for themselves.
So let's talk about this a little bit. See, because I really understand what you're saying, and because of the format we're in, I'm going to be fairly direct. And my sense is that a point of leverage for you would be to explore the ways in which you feel you are a victim or feel victimized. Because part of what I hear you saying is I'm looking through a perceptual filter where I see others as victimized. And that it doesn't sit well inside of me. It brings up discomfort, it brings up judgment. But because you have been a student of spiritual psychology, that outer experience is a reflection of inner reality. And the things that we find ourselves reacting to or in judgment of tend to be mirrors of things within our own consciousness. And you kind of indicated this in the latter part of what you said, that you recognize there are things you feel you've been shut out of. And that seemed in harmony with what I'm suggesting to you here as a place to look. I don't know if what I'm saying is making sense to you, Greg.
Yeah, certainly.
And I'm here for conversation with you about this if you wish.
No, that does have resonance for me, and I've worked with that, and evidently it's still, I guess, present.
Well, let me ask you another question about this. See, is there something that you have told yourself or believed yourself about you that, from your point of view, has left you out of that other, left you out of opportunity? Let me put it that way.
Yeah, certainly messaging of, unworthiness. I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
That if I was to have access to wealth, it would indeed corrupt me too.
Well, and it's so interesting because even that statement is like, well, I would be a victim of wealth, as opposed to recognizing that you would have a choice inside of you about how you related to wealth. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Totally.
Yeah. So my encouragement would be writing and burning about this, to see if you can really let go of the misidentification of yourself as somehow not enough, somehow a victim of the system or the way things are set up, economically, educationally, whatever way it would be.
Sure.
Well, so I hear the sure.
No, that's good. There's certainly material there.
Yeah, and I just encourage you because see the identifications that you're holding and the judgments that you're holding hold you into that misidentification of yourself as a victim rather than empowered and rather than able and resourceful to meet challenging situations and to make honorable choices, because I really get that you are an honorable man. And I just encourage you not to hold yourself into that other identification. Because by so doing, Greg, in a very real way, you are dishonoring yourself. You're holding yourself into an identification of yourself as corruptible or corrupted. Food for thought.
There's another aspect of this thing. It reminds me of a story that happened a bunch of years ago. I don't remember exactly how many. But Mother Teresa had received a very large donation, contribution to the work that she was doing, with her different centers and all of this kind of stuff. And there were a whole flurry of newspaper articles about this, that the money that was given to her, the source of it was some illegal thing. It was either drug money or something like that. And there was a lot of pressure on her to give back the money. And her position was at the time, and I thought, wow, that's cool. She said, who am I to judge what source God chooses to support this work? If we were to look at the fact of the matter, there are people who have enormous wealth who do a lot of good work. And there are people who have enormous wealth that do the kinds of things that you talk about. That's part of the what goes on in physical world reality. It's when we take a position and judge it because we think we know, and really it's very egotistical, because what we're really saying is that if God knew what it was doing, those people wouldn't be the ones who controlled all the money. I would control all of the money because I'd be fair with it. Oh, but it might corrupt me. That's a very tough place to be in. But you understand the sense of what I'm saying here? It's really a judgment against creation to hold it that way. The fact of the matter is that by holding that, and this is what Mary was sharing with you, by holding that perspective based on the beliefs that you have, all you succeed in doing is limiting yourself. And then you disempower yourself to do as much good as you might like to do in the world. So I'm just telling you, I'm not telling you anything different dynamically from what Mary is sharing. I'm just trying to give you a little different perspective so that you might look at it a different way and reach a different conclusion. Just for your consideration.
Yeah. Got it.
Anything else?
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll just do one more, and then we'll call it for the evening. So you have somebody there, Kevin? Or Barry?
Just a moment. All right.
Hello.
Hello.
Would you start with your name, please?
My name is Nine.
Say it
Nice to
again.
meet- Nine? Like the
Nine.
number.
Like
Yeah.
the number.
Got
Yeah.
it.
Okay, unusual.
Okay. So,
Hold that mic right up there so we can hear
okay.
you.
Oh, there you go. So I was downstairs and I was kind of going over my list and listening to everyone speak. And then I realized that what I wrote was what the paper told me to write. And so I wrote, like, we don't have money. We don't have money for that. My mom used to always say that to me. Or money doesn't go on trees. And then I remember when I was a kid, we were in the grocery store, and her budget for groceries for me, her, and my brother was $100. And so when I was a kid, I remember thinking, that's a lot of money. But then how much we got, I was like, dang, we don't get a lot for that much money. And then when I got older and I got my own job and I realized how many hours it took me to make $100,
Yeah.
that whole thing reflected, and I was like, holy shit, we were poor. Excuse my French. Sorry. You know, and so it was like, wow. But then listening to people speak, I realized that wasn't my reality though, because me and my brother had everything. Had the Nintendo, the Sega Genesis, the bicycles, the rollerblades, the skateboards, the camps. My mom made sure we had everything. And so it was weird how I jumped straight to, you know, what the paper told me to say. But then when I started to realize that, then it really hit me why I've had so many issues with money. And so, if I was poor, it was that I was dependent on my mother for money, because she even gave me lunch money. And so I would take the $5 for lunch money and just save it. And so I'd make myself a sandwich, eat that for lunch, and at the end of the week, I had $25. And so me and my friends would go to the corner store, and you know, we'd get 2 liters and chips and go to the park and talk. And so I always had money. But my problem was, once I became an adult and I moved to LA, it was like, even for college, you know, she didn't have money to help me with college. I figured out a way to get a scholarship through my dad, who wasn't around, but just turned out that because he was disabled from the military, they had a scholarship. And so money was given to me from that. And so I had money all the way through school. Once I graduated from school, my car caught on fire. I got $12,000 for that. And I'm telling you, it just gets better and better to the point. Like, after graduation, I needed a place to live. My friend was going to USC, and so she let me live with her for free for 2 years. And then after that, like, I can go on forever. Like, I've literally lived with another friend for 2 years, and it's all trade. So she needed like artistic help because she was working to get a degree in architecture, and so I helped her with her homework because I'm an artist. And so I lived with another friend for 2 years, and he's a stuntman, and he always had to go out of town, and he was getting construction done at his house, and so I was like the site rep. And I had another neighbor when I moved out of my place, and she was like, where are you gonna go? And I wasn't really sure. She was like, no, you should just stay at my house because I have a play to do in San Diego. I'll be gone for a year. As long as you take care of my plants and my cats, you could live for free. After I had to leave from her house, her neighbor, I am not playing, her neighbor said I needed someone to watch my cats for 6 months. And so it can.
So you are a living example of someone who, just because you heard that stuff growing up, it just rolled off. You didn't take it. You didn't take it as truth for you.
Because the truth was always that she provided for me, so I was always provided for. But the problem was, throughout my adult life, I was still broke because I didn't have the freedom to do what I wanted to do with my life because I was dependent on this person, I was dependent on that person, and so I was always trying to figure out, how do I get myself out of this situation? Because all my friends had money, and so I couldn't really hang out with them unless they were paying for me. And so I didn't want to go, but I'm not sure if you could tell by my personality, I'm pretty fun. And so, you know, it was just like, don't even trip, I got you. And so everyone always said, I got you. It was cool. But as I got older, I'm 34. I know it doesn't look like that, but I'm 34. And so it was like, as I got older, it started to weigh on me, and I started to judge myself. And so I manifested a job designing clothes as a graphic designer, so designing t-shirts.
Nice.
And I worked my way from, I think it was 30,000 a year to 65 through negotiation, and I was pretty good. But then I still felt dependent on my boss because he wouldn't let me design what I wanted. He wanted to design what he felt was good.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one of my ideas that I snuck in sold. The things that he wanted to sell didn't sell, and he didn't care. And so then it was like, it ate me up inside. And then over time, I just couldn't do it. And so I quit that job. And then more opportunities to live with people and, you know, just all those opportunities. Like my scooter got stolen. I got $6,000 for that. Then, after the end of the job, I discovered unemployment. And I'm telling you, it is difficult to get off of unemployment when all the opportunities are paying you less than what they're giving you. And I didn't really understand, and I guess my basic point was, when it came to money, growing up, because everything was gifted, I always assumed that when you had money, it was, the purpose of money was to spend it. And so every time I did get money, and you know, I got a lot of money, if I would have invested any of that money, I would have been so good right now. And so I moved home. I just moved back to Los Angeles. I moved home for 4 years to kind of soul search to figure out, what am I supposed to do with my life? Because the purpose I moved intentionally was to act. And I worked my way all the way to the point where I almost booked it.
Is there a question that you have, or kind of a bottom line?
The bottom line, I would say, considering that opportunities come so easily,
Mm-hmm.
how does a person refocus their ability to, you know, get those opportunities to create a life of freedom and monetary abundance that is purposeful, that is controlled by themselves, that is earned by themselves, that has nothing to do with anyone else?
I don't know that it's possible
Yeah.
to live in this world in a way that you don't have to do with anybody else.
Well, what I mean, I know that, you know, if any service that I provide, it will have something to do with community. But what I mean is no longer taking favors and no
Right.
longer being
You want to
dependent.
earn your way.
Yeah, earn my own way.
And you want to do it in the design business?
I want to do it in actually coaching. It's like, at this point, I am a working and practicing career and fear resolution coach.
Fear resolution.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'd have to explain that to you after.
No, it's all right, it's all right.
After the fact, but
I just never heard anybody describe themselves that way.
okay, and it's just something that I've always done. It's one of those things that where someone would say, "What do you want to do with your life?" What do people always said that you were good at, and it's always been that. And so,
Well, see,
go
the
ahead.
very question that you asked, to me, was a very clear question about how does someone do this? See, and I would encourage you to make yourself your first coaching client and find the answer to that question.
Oh.
And that will really give you the credentials to powerfully and purposefully assist others. But I hear that's a real question for you. It's like, how do I get from where I am to where I'd like to be? And in listening to what you shared, I really hear freedom is a very high value.
Yeah.
A very, very high value. And the great thing about coaching is that it would allow you to create a life where there could be considerable freedom. In other words, you're self-employed, you're not working for someone else.
Yes.
But the very question that you're asking, you finding the answer to that will be the credentials by which you'll be able to coach others.
Now, the last thing is,
All right, and we need to bring this to
finish it.
completion.
okay,
Go ahead, finish.
with the coaching, it comes easy. I've always been good at it. I've always done it. And I found that's why all my friends like me, because I'm the person that they go to for help.
Yes.
Now, it's difficult charging people money for something that I like to do, that I'm good at, that I feel like it should be free.
Okay, so I'll end with this story. There was a gentleman who was coming to me for coaching, counseling, whatever you would want to call it. And this was someone who we'd known for some time and was very helpful to us when we first came out here, getting going. And one day we were having a meeting, as Mary mentioned before, with our founder, John Roger. And in the course of the conversation, he said, I understand your coaching or counseling with so-and-so. Is that accurate? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, let me tell you something. And he said, what you're telling him is what he needs to hear. But you're not charging him. And so what he's doing is he's going down the street and paying somebody else, and they're telling him what's not really going to work for him.
Okay.
If you don't stand up as a professional coach, now I'm not saying, be ruthless, and I'm not saying don't, but there are ways to transfer over. There are ways to say things like, I'm moving more and more into coaching, and I would love to consider you as a client. You seem to be somebody who it seems to me that you derive some assistance. Here's what I would like to do. Would you be willing to, whatever, let's say once a week, whatever your timeline is, would you be willing to meet with me 4 times? And I won't charge you for that, but at the end of it, you give me a honest evaluation of the value that I was for you. Or 2 times, whatever it would be. And then you go to the next person, and after you do with this person, you say, I worked with somebody who we know, if saying the name isn't appropriate, and he told me what tremendous value that he got for it, that he got from it. And I think I could do that for you too, but I would want to prove it to you. So what I would like to do is I would like to coach with you for a month at half my normal rate. So you start to morph into the professionality of it.
Okay.
Do you get the sense of what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes sense.
See, and we have, one of the things we do here is we have a professional coaching program. And a lot of it is on what's called client acquisition. And most of everything that we've heard in the class has to do with, it's not like you go out and get clients. Clients are everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Somebody in the class told me, I get most of my clients on business trips when I'm sitting next to somebody on the airplane. They say, what do you do? And they say, you know what, I coach people. Really? Tell me about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how it usually works.
I mean, but you get the sense of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But the word that I really want to leave you with here is professional.
Mm-hmm.
Professional. You have to stand up in the integrity of the value that you deliver. And people will willingly pay for that service because it's helpful. It's not any different from going to the store and buying some vegetables and paying for them because they're helpful. It's a fair trade. But you've got to get over that hump about, they're my friends. And ask them, do you know any people that would be... Are you trying to tap me so that you want to say something? Is that what?
No, just we need to come to completion.
Oh. I'm being pulled out of my professional life. I think if all else fails, you should become a comedian. A stand-up kind of guy,
Right on.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Really.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. So just a couple of other things to complete the evening. On the back of the handout, the fifth question was an invitation to write down 5 statements having to do with what you're most grateful for in your life. And we just invite you here and now, we'll just take a few minutes for this, just to write down things that you're grateful for. It may be other people, it may be experiences, it may be things that you have, whatever they are. Let's take just a few minutes for that.
And then we'll tell you why. I don't think we have a mic. Let's see. She has a request. Can we get a mic over here?
Right here, Kevin.
Right here, Kevin.
I don't drive. I take the bus, and it's late at night tonight.
Where do you need to go to?
I live near Culver City, Mar Vista, off of
Here's your ride, right here.
Washington Place.
Here's your ride, right
Thank you
here.
very
Daniel will
much.
take you.
Thank you very much.
take a look at how much of what you just wrote has or has nothing to do with money. And what it does is it gives you a real sense of what value is. And as long as you can have things that you have gratitude for, focusing on that and less on the what you don't have might be a very good shift to make inside as you go through life.
And
So-
just one other thing that we said we'd share with you at the end. Here at USM, we encourage people to work with bedtime intentions. Bedtime intentions. And a bedtime intention, I'll give you two that you could work with, having to do with the area of finances and money. And one would be, before you go to sleep, ask Spirit for assistance in healing any unresolved material residing in your consciousness that may be limiting, restricting, or blocking your financial abundance. So you could ask for Spirit's assistance in healing that. And the other, if you're looking for inspiration about creative opportunities or creative ways for you to expand in your service, your work in the world, that would result in the possibility of greater financial compensation, you can also ask Spirit for guidance, for inspiration, for dreams that could provide you with ideas that would be of that kind, that could open up your expression and also your greater abundance.
Okay, anything else?
No.
Well, thank you all for coming this evening, and we look forward to seeing you again whenever that happens. Eliza?
Wow. Wow, what an evening, huh? So good, right? So good. Thank you, Ron and Mary, and thank you all for joining us this evening. It was a true pleasure. I want to take a minute and really acknowledge each of you for coming here tonight and giving yourself a taste of what this transformational, experiential education is really about. And let's be clear, tonight was just a taste. Tonight we covered the context of money, and there is so much more than that available to you through this education. Students who have participated in this program report transformation in their careers, their relationships, their health, and many more areas of their life. They speak of lives rich with personal fulfillment and meaning due to their time here at USM. So I invite you now to take a moment. See if there's a question inside. Perhaps there's a desire to transform one or more areas of your life. If any part of you inside feels a little bit more awake and alive tonight and wants to explore what this education could do in your life, we would love to connect with you. Here are a few great ways to get started. You can purchase Ron and Mary's book, Loyalty to Your Soul, The Heart of Spiritual Psychology, in the back of the room with Mary Kate and Lisa. Downstairs, that's with Lenore. If you'd like to experience some class time in here, we have USM's most popular workshop coming up at the end of the month. That will be on April 29th, 30th, and May 1st, and that's the Couples Workshop. Whether it is coming into clear communication on an upset within a relationship or participating to deepen in the loving that's already there, it's sure to be a powerful and profound weekend. We are welcoming 100 couples into this workshop, and it is filling up fast. So if this is something that you are interested in, I highly encourage you to register tonight, and you can do so in the back also with Mary Kate, and downstairs again, that's with Lenore. And for all of the grads and students we have with us tonight, I wanted to be sure you know about the new upcoming workshop in July. It is Spiritual Psychology and the Enneagram. This will be July 22nd through 27th and facilitated by Ron, Mary, and Robert Holden, the author of Lovability. It's sure to be a wonderful week. And of course, enrollment for October's Soul-Centered One Living program is open. And if this is something that you're curious about checking out tonight and would like to go on a deeper exploration of what that would be like for you, we'd love to talk to you. To schedule a conversation with an admissions advisor, please see Melissa in the back. She would love to set you up with that. Or you can go to our website and request a phone call from there. Many of you have had conversations with us already and may be ready to get started on your application and registration tonight, which is fantastic. If that is the case, please see Natasha and Shabnam in the back. They would be happy to help you with that. And for those of you who want to talk with somebody directly after tonight's event, let me introduce you to the team. Upstairs, we have the Director of Admissions, Tammy Scott. Yay! And of course, myself, Eliza, I'm available to speak with you as well. Downstairs, we have the brilliant student advisor, Barry Clark. Yay, Barry. And as we know, there are many students and grads in the audience tonight. So if anybody would like to make themselves available for that conversation, as I'm sure we all do, because we all love talking about this, if you could raise your hands right now and identify yourselves, that would be fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. And of course, if you're interested in this program but need to run home to feed your pet, don't worry. We have beautiful brochures in the back, complete with class schedule and tuition information. So be sure to pick those up on your way out. And finally, we do have 2 more of these amazing experiential complimentary evenings between now and August. We would love to see each of you there. You've been a sensational audience. We do have flyers for that with dates on your way out. You can pick those up, as well as any brochures for programs I've mentioned tonight. Now, we wouldn't want to leave you with a full soul but an empty stomach, so be sure to have some cookies, juice, and fine conversation before you leave tonight. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Ron and Mary. Thank you, everyone online. Have a beautiful night. Bye-bye.